Hi, everyone. This is Lynn Crawford with Hope Dementia Support, and I am here today with Colleen Storey, who is going to present us, excuse me, with a very timely topic, finding balance in a chaotic world. So I would like very much for Colleen to tell us a little bit about herself. But first of all, I want to remind you that all of your questions will be answered. Just please put them in the chat or in the Q&A. And then I'm going to turn it over to Colleen. Thank you, Colleen, for being here.
Oh, great. Thank you, Lynn. So happy to be able to be with you all tonight. So my name is Colleen Storey. I am a clinical licensed independent social worker, and I am the holistic care supervisor with Peace Health Hospice for the past 12 years and a grief recovery specialist for the last 10 years. Um, I started the No One Dies Alone program in both Clark and Cowlitz County. So I trained individuals to sit visual on the bedside of those who would otherwise be alone in their final time. I have a part-time private practice, and I believe, if I'm right, this is my fourth presentation for Hope Dementia.
I believe that's correct. Thank you for continuing to support us.
You bet. So I wanted to, finding balance in a chaotic world. So I wanted to first start with just laying the groundwork so that we're all have an understanding, we're all on the same page. So with everything that's going on in the world today, I counsel a lot of people who are living in fear. But what is the function of fear? Because they come to me thinking that it's bad. But you know what? Fear isn't bad. Fear is designed to keep us safe. So it's that fight, flight, or freeze mechanism in our body that helps preserve our lives, actually. And so in our brain, we have a part of the brain called the amygdala that is totally responsible for the fight or flight response or freeze in our body. So when a perceived threat is detected, the amygdala sends a distress signal to the body, which prepares the body to fight, flee, or freeze by releasing stress hormones like adrenaline. So it tells us, because it's to keep our body alive. So we fight the lion, we run away from the lion, or perhaps we're just going to freeze and hope that that lion doesn't see us. And in modern day, I mean, if you can see this playing out if you watch the Olympics and like the track and field, right? They're in the box and in the starter blocks and they're waiting for this signal. And you can see that they're tense and they're focused. And as soon as the starter pistol goes off, they take off running. And you can see in their bodies the tension, their muscles are bulging, and they're just running. They're in this zone, this fight, flight thing. But as soon as they cross that finish line, all that adrenaline leaves the body, the brain sends a signal to relax. So the fight or flight is important for humanity, for humans to stay alive. It's not a bad thing. But in a chaotic world, fear can turn to anxiety. That function of fear can turn into anxiety, excessive worry, uncertainty. And so, actually, what it creates in us is a irrational fear. And, my world, what I use is false evidence appearing real. It's just irrational, though, but it appears real. And there's different types of irrational thinking that can take over. when we're under anxiety or uncertainty, when we're living with that. And I'm not going to go over all of these in this box, but so we have cognitive distortions. It's all or nothing thinking. It's just black and white. This is the way it is. It's either this or it's that. Or catastrophizing what's happening. It's really normal for individuals to um, expect the worst case scenario to happen. You know, the worst is going to happen. I mean, that's what we do. I think we all do is like we tend to lean towards the worst of it all. And over a generalization, making broad interpretations from a single event. So, this happens every time, or whenever I do this, this always happens. We just get into that mode. And then the negative thoughts, again, predicting negative outcomes without the evidence. This is what's going to happen. I know it. I know this is true. This is, I'm going to, I'm trying to think of an example real quick. Well, I'll come up with one in a minute. Personalization. So we believe that we are responsible for the events outside of your control. I hear this so often in my line of work as a grief counselor. I should have known better. I should have got my spouse to the doctor earlier, and none of this would have happened. This death would have never have happened if I had gotten him to the doctor on time. And they believe that outcome is their fault. They're assuming that they should have known what to do, and not only what they should have done, but they're also taking time to assume or what other people are thinking about them. And it's always in a negative light. So you come up on a couple of people talking and then they stop talking when you get up there. And so many people just automatically go towards, oh, they were talking about me. No, it must not have been very good. They probably hate the dress that I'm wearing because they never even said anything this morning when I walked in and my dress was lovely. And, we just start talking. We just like, that's that irrational fear and anxiety that's going on. Another thing that I think that they talk about here that I think is important when we're talking about a chaotic world is relying heavily on the first piece of information that we get, that we encounter. It's this is what I heard on the news and this is what's happening. We don't question it. We just anchor ourselves in this is the truth and this is what's going on. And it can um, go against our belief systems, or it can confirm pre-existing biases that we have. We all have biases. We all have our opinions and what we feel is our truth. And so we favor that information that confirms what we already believe. So we look for that. And so then we stay away from any other information that's coming in, especially if it differs from what we already believe to be true. We're just not open to other opinions. So what irrational fears do, thoughts. So what happens when we're living with irrational fears? It doesn't allow us to live in the present moment. So the emotions are real. How we're feeling, that anxiety, that excessive worry, all of that is real, but the cause isn't necessarily real. So we look at this continuum here, and the irrational fear is like, let's say right now, I don't know how many people I've had in my office that I've talked to that are extremely fearful, and they know that they are going to lose their Medicaid. They're going to lose it all. And so that's that fear, because we don't know for certain, but they believe it. And it becomes irrational when we become obsessed with it, and we're filling in the story ourselves of how this is going to happen. And so we spend a lot of time out into the future going, I'm going to lose all my Medicaid. So I'm not going to be able to get to a doctor. I'm not going to have funding. I'm not going to have funding for my spouse to be in assisted living. I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to die a horrible death because I will not be able to see a doctor or get payments to help with the care of my loved one. And then, but we're also in the past going, you know what? I should have prepared for this better. I should have known this day was coming. I should have gone to college and worked a high paying job and invested my money. I did not invest my money properly. And so now here I am in this fix, because when it all goes away, I have nothing. I don't know what to do. The world's going to end. I mean, I don't know what to do. And so here's all of this brain energy going first into the future. I'm going to lose this. I'm not going to have this. I should have done this. You know, I'm a failure. How can I provide for my spouse, my children? You know, how am I going to do this? and and how am I going to make sure that I have what I need in the Medicaid, in the care? I'm going to have to pull my loved one out of the facility because I no longer have funding for that. And then at the same time, we have all of this brain energy going into the past, going, man, I should have prepared better for this. I knew it was going to happen. You know, I just didn't want to believe it. And so now this is going to happen, and I don't know what to do. And so you can see where the fight or flight is competing in our heads right now. Do I fight? Do I run? What do I do? What do I do? I don't know what to do. So all of those emotions are real. They're real in our bodies. You feel that sense of panic. But the cause is the story that we made up that we're going to lose our Medicaid because they keep talking about it on the news all the time. They keep saying it. I'm reading about it. Other people are talking about it. So it doesn't leave us very much left over in the in our present time, in the here and the now. So this is how those irrational thoughts and fears can impact, is how it all happens, is how it happens, how the groundwork of the brain and the functioning. It's real. It's not a deficit on anybody's part. It's normal, common that we would tend to start kind of panicking about what's happening. So in this webinar, what I hope to do is to help you understand the impact of grief, stress, and uncertainty has on our whole well-being, and then explore strategies for the emotional and mental balance. How do we balance this out? Because sometimes these fears are real. I can feel it in my body, but how do I counteract that? How do I balance it so that I'm not in one living constant in fear? And then I will provide you with a couple of tools to help build up your resilience and to manage living in this chaotic world. So my first step here is to give you some definitions. So grief. The definition in my book of grief is the normal and appropriate emotional response to a loss. I should say to a significant loss. So grief equals emotions. That's what it is. Stress is a physiological and psychological response to any internal or external stressor, which is any event at all that demands that you make that makes you feel challenged or pressured. And then uncertainty is a, a state of doubt, being indecisive, the lack of conviction, the unknown. Sum up uncertainty is the unknown, living with that unknown. And and how does all of this affect our well-being? So I'm going to take one at a time here. So the impact of grief. So when I say grief is the emotional response to a significant loss, I guess I should throw in the term loss because significant loss is a loss that, first of all, is significant to you and only you. It doesn't matter if it's significant to your neighbor, to your spouse, to your children, to your friends. It's what's important to you. So in grief, we have all these different components that can affect our well-being. So we have emotional responses. So we feel helplessness, a sense of hopelessness, disbelief or shock, anger at the deceased, anger at God, angry at ourselves or other people. Anger is a very valid response. It's just how we handle it that can kind of get us into trouble. Guilt and the feelings of being overwhelmed, anxiety, panic, extreme sadness. And this is where people get tripped up. They'll say, I'm so depressed. But if you're going through a current significant loss, you're going to be sad, and we get to be sad. Envy, worrying about ourselves, worrying about how other people are coping, and sometimes just the terror of losing others. We have a significant loss. What's to say that I don't have more down the road? Because it makes it real to us. So then we have behavioral responses, uncontrollable crying, the use of drugs or alcohol to self-medicate because we don't know what to do when we're filled with anxiety and panic and uncertainty and we're overwhelmed by all of it and we can't make a decision. Some people will use drugs or alcohol to just self-medicate, to give themselves a break. Sometimes just weird, uncontrollable laughing. I know when I'm really fearful, I will laugh. My friends used to like to take me to all those, horror movies when we were kids because I would always laugh and they thought it was funny. And it was like, you don't understand. I'm like, I don't think this is funny. I'm scared to death by this, but that's how my body responded. And just discussing the loss with families and friends over and over and over and over again as we're trying to make sense of what's happened. We have spiritual responses, being angry at God, questioning our faith. Um, Sometimes we change our belief systems completely because where we're at isn't fitting where we feel right now. Some people build a stronger relationship with God or that higher power and that can see him through. Social responses, isolation, lack of status in the community sometimes. Um, I worked with a gentleman or a wife of a prominent heart surgeon in another state. And when he died, she lost a lot of her status getting into nice restaurants and all different kinds of places because it was her husband that had the status, not her. And she had to adjust to that. And it was very difficult. Friends may feel uncomfortable around you and they just want you to return back to your normal self. Um, Inability to support other family members, especially those who are grieving. We find that difficult, and just conflicts between you and family members or friends just due to completely different perceptions, grieving styles, physical responses. So if you go back to the picture with the brain and all that energy going out, it makes us tired. We're fatigued. We'll have an increase or decrease in appetite, decrease in increase, decrease in energy, general achiness, headaches, nausea, just indigestion problems, the feelings of just being immobilized because we don't feel well. We don't know what we're doing. And then finally, the cognitive, how we're thinking about things. Again, if you look at the or think back on the picture with our all that energy from our brain going out, because we're expending so much brain energy going back into the future and the woulda couldas, what if I done this, I should have done that, and then the fear of what's going to happen, that uncertainty, unknown in the future, a lot of brain energy going out there. It's emotionally and cognitively exhausting. This is why we can't concentrate, why we can't focus. We seem to appear to be disorganized. We lack motivation, short-term memory loss. We get up, go to the kitchen, and it's like, um, I don't know what I came in here for. And then just briefly, suicidal thoughts. Now, this is different than suicide ideation. The thoughts are just saying, I don't want to be here anymore. This is too hard. This is too difficult. I just want to get off this planet. I want to be with my loved one. I want to be somewhere else. I don't want to be here dealing with this. It doesn't mean that you have a plan and that you want to take your life or that there's something wrong with you. This is really common, the impact of grief. And when we're in this space where we don't know what to do, wouldn't it just be easier if we didn't have to deal with any of it? Yeah. So then the impact of stress on our bodies. Now you're going to see some overlapping here. So physical signs, headaches, neck and shoulder pain. What we do is tight muscles. So what we do when we have all of this energy in our body and we don't know what to do with it and we're not releasing it, we store it in our bodies and we store it in our muscles. That's why we get the tight muscle aches, the tight shoulder, and the neck pain. We can lose our appetite, headaches, back pain, upset stomach. We get this lump in our throat that is just hard to to talk. It's just it's all of this tightness in our bodies. And to help with some of this, there's other than therapy, I always tell people get a massage. A massage helps to release the stuck energy, all those thoughts, all those emotions that we're holding on to and releasing it out of our bodies. The mental signs of stress is feeling of restlessness. We have difficulty sleeping. Again, we have muscle aches. We're irritable. We're tired. We're just fatigued. And again, remember our that brain energy that's going out is why we feel so fatigued. And if we're having an upset stomach and we're not feeling very hungry because our stomachs are upset, we're going to have fatigue as well. And again, no concentration. So the impact of uncertainty on our body, so mental and emotional, we can fear, very common, burnout, that feeling of being burned out. Because again, you're looking at all the emotions that are going on within us, trying to figure out, what do I need to do? I don't know what to do. These are the worst of times. I'm never going to survive this. It's the worst case scenario that's ever going to happen. It's going to weigh so heavy on us that it's going to create a lot of fear, a lot of doubt, a lot of frustration, anxiety, mood swings. And when we're like that, we tend to retreat from friends in society. And then finally, the physical impact of uncertainty. Neck and back pain. Again, higher cortisol levels because we're under that stress. Headaches, physical fatigue, body aches, digestive issues, weakened immune system, poor sleep. So I think y'all are noticing that there's an overlapping response of between the grief, the stress, and the uncertainty. If we go back to the fight or flight freeze response in our body, this is why. I mean, all of this happens in quickly. We don't know. I mean, some people are, how do I want to say this? Where it happens kind of without our awareness of it all happening. And when we become so overwhelmed, many of us will just default into that uncertainty and start filling in the gaps with the irrational fear. This is what happens when that that fear, when we start filling in the story of what's going to happen, this is how it's going to happen. I'm not going to have this. I'm not going to have that. I can't do this. I should have done that. It's what we do. This is a natural response to our body, to all this anxiety that we're feeling. And so the factors that influence how much it impacts us is first our perceived control. If an individual feels like they have some control over the situation, the negative impact of uncertainty will be lessened. If we can find some control over a situation. Now, and I'm going to talk later where we get that sense of control over situations that are literally, we feel that are out of our control. Individual differences. So all intolerance plays a significant role. I mean, there are people that have gone through past experiences, and we've experienced, and it's our perceived experience of how much support that we have. So if we feel that we have no support, we have no tools or understanding what's happening, and everything's out of our control, it is going to impact us in a much greater way. And there are just some people who are built to look at the negative side of life. And so it's going to impact these individuals. And age, what I can say about the age is, like, with age comes wisdom. We've been through this, we've been through that. So we have maybe a little bit more wisdom and insight, a little bit more tools or knowledge that I've been through this before, I can do this again. Where a younger group of people um, may not have that sense. So, how does uncertainty affect the brain? Well, uncertainty activates the brain's fear or stress response, right? So it leads to a heightened alertness and anxiety. And when this happens, like there's a lion, our brain is going to focus on the potential threat. Now, again, I'm saying the potential threat might not be real, but if we believe that there is a potential threat, our brain is going to automatically focus on that threat. It's going to be fixated on it, and it's difficult to concentrate. It to make decisions, to maintain that emotional balance that we need. It just makes it difficult when we're focusing. I mean, look at this poor ostrich. I thought this was so fitting. I got scared. Unfortunately, I was standing on a concrete floor at the time. He was focused on that threat, but forgot to make a good decision that can't stick your head through a cement floor. And this what if people can make decisions that may not be the best in the moment, and then they berate themselves later for not making better decisions. This is the stress response in our brain. It has nothing to do with our capacity of being able to make good decisions, but in the moment when we're heightened our alertness and we're going through anxiety, that we see that lion, and probably one of the worst things to do is start running from it. It's a cat, it's going to chase. And often when we're in fear, human beings tend to go to the worst case scenario. We're going to go right before I came on here. I was looking at a news feed and they're talking about the super volcano in Yellowstone, what will happen when it blows up, and this volcano and this earthquake and that earthquake. And I'm going, man. And the news was going to all of the worst case scenarios of what could happen. So we're being fed this over and over again. So this is how the uncertainty affects our processing. We're focused on the threat, and that's what's creating the anxiety. So, coping mechanisms for uncertain times. So, when we're looking, this is my Red Cross bag for grief. There are three things that can help us through the grief process, especially in the very beginning. One is we need to drink water. Remember all the headaches that we're getting, the achiness in our joints, those in, indigestion problems, all of that? It's usually because we're dehydrated. It's simply because we're dehydrated, because we're focused on what's going on around us. We often don't take care of ourselves the way that we normally would. And we're tired, we're emotionally drained. We don't feel like eating, we don't feel like drinking water, we're not sleeping. And if we're not sleeping very well, well, then when we have to start our day, what are we going to do? We're going to go and we're going to drink coffee. We're going to eat sugar. We're going to go for the carbs because it's going to get us energy to get through the day because we just haven't been sleeping well. All of the caffeine, all of that depletes us of our water. And if we're under really stressful situation, we could be crying a lot as well. And so our body needs water. We're made up of mostly water. Our brain needs water to function, to process things. And not only does it need water, but it also needs protein. It needs healthy food, but it needs protein. So this is what I tell people that come with their grief is that I know maybe eating a big meal and with all this anxiety, all this stuff that's going on in our world right now can be crazy. And it can be upsetting to us. And when we have this anxiety and this fear, when we eat food, sometimes it really upsets our stomach. So, what I tell individuals, just nibble throughout the day and make sure that you're getting the protein that you need. So, a hard boiled egg, scrambled egg, nuts, if you can eat nuts. Oftentimes, I'll tell people to go down to the store and get like like a little deli platter that has pre-cut meat and cheese where you can just kind of roll it up and kind of munch on it a little bit. A protein shake, you know, just getting some protein in our bodies so that our synapses in our brains are firing correctly because we're overwhelmed. We have all this anxiety, we have this uncertainty, we can't make a decision. And now, I mean, those are normal responses to the stress and grief, but oh my gosh, we got to give ourselves a fighting chance here. So our body needs just some protein that can help us along. And when we talked about the sore muscle, I talked about the energy that gets stuck in our bodies because we don't know what to do with it. Sometimes we can't cry. Sometimes you know, putting on our, pulling up our big girl panties and we're just going to get through the day. We're just going to power through. We're just going to just because that's what we're supposed to do. And so all these emotions and feelings and that were just, it's not the time to talk about that right now. We don't talk about such things. I'm doing fine. So all that emotion gets stored in our bodies. And when they get stored in our joints, we tense up. That's why when we go and we get a massage, when we're done with an hour massage, that the first thing we want to do is go take a nap because it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I feel so relaxed. I can't, oh man, because we are clueless at how much stress we're carrying in our bodies at any given time. We just become we just make adjustments. So we really don't know. Or after we've had a breakdown sob fest, the first thing we want to do is take a nap because we're so relaxed, because we just released this tremendous amount of energy. So before the crying, before the massage, and we have all that energy stuck in our bodies, we breathe really shallow. And to try that out, take your shoulder blade or your shoulder and put it up to your ears as high as you can and take a deep breath. It's not so easy to do. You can feel it's harder to do when we tense up physically, when we're aware that we're tensing up. But a lot of this in the chaos in the world, listening to the news, listening to people hollering and yelling and all of that, we tense up. And so we breathe really shallow. And our brain, believe it or not, needs oxygen. It needs oxygen to fire correctly. It needs water, it needs fuel, which is our protein, and we need oxygen. We need to breathe. Those three things, if you can do those three things on a daily basis, it will help relieve some of the stress that you're feeling. Guaranteed. Very, very simple fix. Other ways for stress and anxiety, we need to learn to let go. I know this is difficult, but when we need to question the stories that we're telling ourselves, or I call them the tapes that run in the background. The what ifs. I should have done this. I should have done that. They're talking about me. They're this, they're that, da da da. We are not all psychics. We do not know for sure what's going to happen a minute from now, 5 minutes from now, an hour from now. We don't know. We do not know. We'll tell ourselves that we know what's going on and what's happening, and we'll start believing that. That's that false fear again. We'll fill in the gaps, but we don't know. And it's okay that we don't know what's going to happen. There's nothing saying that we have to know what's going to happen tomorrow morning. We're holding on to way more than what we need to. We need to identify your uncertainty triggers. So triggers, recognizing what your triggers are, you can take action to avoid them, get rid of them. So examples of some triggers: watching the news day in and day out. If watching the news is upsetting to you, maybe we don't want to watch the news. Is scrolling on Facebook and all of that and reading all of these media stories and all of that. Because remember, especially with the media stories, the algorithms, if you stop at one particular story, that's going, oh, this is what they want to hear, and they'll feed you more. They'll feed you stories that are the same, that support each other, because they think that's what it is that you want to hear. So you're not getting any other outside sources here. You're getting fed what you pause to look at. So, in most of those stories, especially when we're talking political and all of that, they've seemed to focus on the worst case scenarios. Just like when I was scrolling and learning about, the volcano, Mount Rainier's coming to life, and the super volcano in Yellowstone. I'm like going, goodness sakes. It's a good thing focus on the present, where we are at today. Okay, so some mindfulness activities I was talking about: meditation, walking, audio, listening to guided meditations, deep breathing, working on a puzzle, working on a craft you enjoy, artwork, playing cards, reading a book. These are just some of the ways that you can focus on this present moment. And I, well, I'll talk about that here in a minute. So stress and anxiety, get moving. Oh my gosh, move our bodies. Exercising is natural and effective stress reliever, and it's an anti-anxiety treatment. Go for a walk in nature. And I say go for a walk in nature because nature, the sounds of nature. I read this beautiful article on the sounds of nature are at a megahertz vibration that our body responds to for healing. It's why we feel so good when we go sit and listen to the ocean or take a walk in nature. You can take a walk in neighborhood park, go for a run, dance, yoga. And you can go online and look up chair yoga and watch a YouTube video where they will help you sit even in your chair and do yoga or Tai Chi, any type of movement with our body. That's that somatic treatment. That movement helps release that stress and anxiety. Get plenty of sleep. If you're having difficulty sleeping, I'm going to give you shortly a tool for that. Eating a healthy diet, fruit, vegetables, foods high in omega-3 fats. Avoid the sugar and the processed foods. Because again, the sugar and the processed foods will that can cause body aches and upset stomachs and all of that. So we want to eat as healthy diet as we can and take actions over the things that you can control. And I'm going to expand on that here in just a few minutes. So, getting plenty of sleep. So, here's some of your take home tools. Here's a breathing exercise. So, deep breathing exercise for releasing anxiety. It can help calm your whole nervous system down to help you sleep. And I'm going to give you the science behind this. So, the exercise itself is to take in a deep belly, expandable breath through your nose, just as much breathe in as much oxygen till your belly just expands as much, and you hold it, and you hold it, and you hold it. You hold it until your lungs start screaming at you, and you hear this voice in your head to breathe. Got it hurts. Let the air out. And when you can't hold it any longer, you're going to hold it for an additional count of 4 and then let the breath out really slowly over the count of 4. And then take another deep breath in again and hold it. Do this a minimum of 4 times or more. The more, the better. The more times that you can do this, the better it is. And here's the science behind that. So we have our brain, we have our primitive brain in the amygdala that's going to help out here. Its sole purpose is to keep our body alive. So it takes care of all of our autonomic functions of our body. It tells our body when to breathe. It tells our body when to eat. It tells our body when we're thirsty. And it tells us when to stop and fight the lion, to run away from the lion, or just plain freeze so that lion doesn't see us. That's the goal here of of our primitive brain. It's just solely to keep our body alive. Does it automatic? I mean, can you imagine if you had to tell yourself, breathe, heartbeat, I'm thirsty, all at one time, right? So it's just its sole purpose to keep our body alive. So when we stop breathing, it starts activating that fight or flight in our brain. And they're going, whoa, 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 wait a minute, wait a minute. Colleen's not breathing. Colleen's not breathing. And that urgency, the longer you hold that breath and the more that you do that, that urgency that you're not breathing properly starts in your head. And it's urgent because it's like danger, danger, Will Robbins, danger. Colleen's not breathing. You got to breathe. You got to breathe. Come on, you got to breathe. And when we do this 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times or more, when we finally let out our breath at the last of it and go back to breathing normal, that primitive brain's going, woo, okay, danger's past. Colleen's breathing. It's good. It's all good. And so then what happens is that it tricks our brain into flooding our body with endorphins that allows our body to relax and to be calm. The breathing, a lot of people get lightheaded because, like I said, we carry that stress, we hold it in our bodies, and we breathe shallow. So now our brain's got a lot of oxygen coming to it. But you do this when you're anxiety, you can do this driving a car. You can do this anytime that you're feeling overwhelmed. You can't sleep at night, sit at the edge of your bed, do this breathing exercise. And then when your body gets flooded with those endorphins, it will help you to relax and it will help you to sleep. And finally, we talked about earlier, I said take actions on the things that you can control. So this is a tool I gave Lynn um, a copy of this with explanations and blank sheets that you can create your own. So I'm sure she can email that out to you. And then the meditations, the mindfulness, there's guided meditations in that. I also gave her some free resources for that you can listen to. But so the circle of control. So on the outer ring, the blue ring, these are things that we cannot control. The finances due to government policy, natural disasters, what he or what she said. We have no control of what they said or what they did or do. Medicaid, medical, Medicaid, the approaching holidays, we can't control. We can't control change, government policy, war, death. We can't control our loved one who's declining or just global political issues. These are things outside our circle of control. You know, we think it's an illusion to think that we have control. We can't have control over the weather. In the purple are things that we can control. We can control who we vote for, where and what I buy. I can control the fact if I attend a support group or counseling. I can control what I watch and what I read. Just going back to the triggers again. We can control how much social media we're on. We can control our attitude towards something. How much time we spend on social media. Who I surround myself with. Do I want to surround myself with uplifting people? Or people who are angry and negative all the time? I can control if I meditate, spend my time in meditation or prayer. I can control calling or writing my representative, or if I'm volunteering because people, like the whole SNAP thing with people getting food benefits and that we may not have been able to control what the government did, but we can control by volunteering to help out. That's how we want to spend our time. Talk with a financial advisor or with a case manager. Tell me what I can do. I can make those phone calls. I can control that. And another circle that we could have added into this is the circle of influence. There are people out there that have more influence to change things than we do. So, like our senators, representatives, mayor, governors, a news agency, we can call in and let them know, write letters, say, I don't support this. But these individuals that are senators and governors, state representatives, they have more influence over some of these political things that we see, right? We don't have the control, but we do have the control that we can call them. We can let our voice be heard one way or the other. So we have that circle of what we can't control. We have another circle of influence that there are people who have higher influence than that we have. They have a little bit more power, maybe to change things. So the things that we can control are getting in touch with those people, letting them know how we feel, letting them know what our expectations of them are. So we always look for the people that are influential who have just that little bit more power. But the goal here is to live in our control, what we can control. So I hope this makes sense to you all. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we have a half an hour to answer questions.
Okay. I had to find out which person I was so I could unmute myself. So I do have some questions for you,
Great.
and they're related to the caregiver,
Mm-hmm.
which I think kind of extrapolates to other stressors. So, first of all, what happens if we live on that emergency response state for years and years as caregivers?
Oh, yeah, that trauma, fight or flight, constantly survival mode.
Yep.
Yeah. So the survival mode is hard to find joy and experience that when we're in that survival mode. So what we need to do is spend even more time in doing the things that we like to do, whether it's are we still caregiving? Can we bring somebody in that's going to give us more respite so that we can get out and then just ground ourselves and take care of ourselves? Talking to a really good therapist, because most of this survival mode is because we're doing it on our own, or we feel that we're doing it on our own. So being able to sit with an individual that understands what you're going through and express that and unload that, because we're carrying all of that. I was in survival mode for 5 years when my mother had Alzheimer's and dementia. And after she passed, I still had a really hard time finding any kind of joy because I didn't know how, because I was in survival mode. So I had to figure out for myself, what is that? What do I need to do? I leaned really heavy into my spirituality. I'm not a religious person per se, but I'm very spiritual. I spent a lot of time walking in nature and resting my mind because when we're in survival mode, we're in our heads. We need to step out of our heads and spend time just breathing and being in the present moment, not worrying about what came before or what's coming down the pike. It is really our focus on taking care of ourselves, being gentle with ourselves, um, looking at any guilt or regret that we may have, and it's identifying the the tapes that play in the background that we're unaware of, that say we should have done a better job. We could have done this. Why didn't you do that? You know, you should have done this. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. And they're playing in the background and we're not aware of them. So I think becoming aware of them through therapy, counseling, spending time with ourselves, meditating, just being mindful will help us to identify those false um, narratives that we're telling ourselves. And the therapist can help us to rewrite those stories and give us a sense of a peace and allow us to start letting go so we can be back and true to ourselves. That answer your question?
It did. So, but I'm going to expand. You thought you
Okay.
got off easy. So, if we are living in this state as a caregiver, and the world around us is also stressful between hunger and homelessness and financial stress and political unrest, and there is no place of respite. What specific techniques can help with coping with the ambiguity that we're experiencing?
You know, the first thing that I tell my clients is turn off the news, turn it off. Because what they're doing, you can listen to it, you can hear a little bit in the morning, then turn it off because it's all fear based. It's feeding our fear. And that's what we're reacting to and responding to is our fear because that's all we hear. And again, I'm going to pull it back. The techniques are you start your morning in prayer or start your morning in a 5 minute listen to a YouTube guided meditation to set your day, to reset your energy. And then throughout the day, take the time to just stop, close your eyes, and just take some really deep breaths. I know this sounds really simplistic, but it works. Coming, envisioning the life that we want to have. And here's something that's really powerful that I will say was the one thing that changed my life after my mom died was I bought, I don't even have one here. I used to, a small journal. It was just, I don't know, not very big. And every night when I went to bed, I would sit at my bed and I would write down the date and I would say, today I am grateful for, and I would list 5 or 6 things that I was grateful for. And then the next night I would do it again. I couldn't repeat what I had written the night before. I couldn't repeat it. I could only write it down once a week. So I'm like grateful that I have a roof over my head. And so the next night I couldn't repeat and say, I'm grateful for having a roof over my head. And what happens, you do this every day for 40 days, it will change your life. What happens is it resets your brain into looking into gratitude, being grateful, living in gratitude, seeing things. And, I did this practice when mom died, and mom has died 6 years ago now. I can't believe it's been that long. And this is the one I have never stopped. When I started this, so it's been a good 5 years that I've been doing a gratitude journal, and I've never stopped. When I travel, I take the journal with me, and you will look at things and go, oh, I could write about that. I could put that in my gratitude journal. And it's a whole mindset of looking at what you're grateful for in this world versus living in the constant fear of this world. I know there is crazy stuff going on out there. I know that, but I don't give in to the fear of it. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of unknown. I mean, just here where I work, they laid off a whole lot of people. I mean, so, and people are fearful, but I choose to live into the gratitude moment, and it grounds me in knowing that there's so much beauty in this world. And I'll tell you what I tell my niece all the time is that love is the strongest force in the universe. It wins, it always wins. And so I don't give in to the fear simply by being grateful for what I have right here and right now. It's a powerful, powerful tool. It sounds easy, but I guarantee it, if you do this for 40 days, you will come back and say, "Oh my God, this has made such a difference in my world." I cannot control what's going on in the world, the craziness. And I can't control that. I can do things that to help other people out, and I can be kind. But if you're going to constantly live with the news, the fear will override you. And that's what you're going to live in is fear. And that's all you're going to see is fear. You're going to look for it. You're going to look for the negative because that's all you have. And that's going to wear you down, is going to exhaust you. And to live in that constant fear and being stuck in the survival mode. When my mom had Alzheimer's, my my aunt had died quite a few years before my mom, and she had died with dementia, Alzheimer's disease. And my cousins, especially Wally, would tell the funniest stories, and he would laugh. His whole attitude about it was so different than mine because he came from this place of this is life, this is what it's going to be. I'm not going to give in to this. And I'm like, I'm not you. I can't do that. It wasn't my makeup until afterwards when I finally realized that I was looking at all of the negative that was happening, all the bad things that was happening, and my fear of what was going to happen in the future with my mom, what I was going to do, how I can control it. And, I'm this therapist, I'm supposed to have all the answers. And it's like, oh my gosh. And I stayed that way. where Wally went through his in the most graceful way I can imagine because his outlook was different, completely different than mine. His sense of humor, everything was completely different, and it kept him on the lighter side. So, did that answer your question, Lynn?
It did. So I'm going to make it a little more difficult and
Okay.
then ask you to just touch on the ambiguity and that anticipatory grieving that occurs when you're caring for a loved one with a prognosis that is related to progressive dementia type diseases.
Yeah. Wow. You're putting me into the fire now. So, with the anticipatory grief, I think one of the best things that oh man, that is so hard because we want to hold on to the past with our relationship, and yet the future is so uncertain. We know where we're headed. We just are not sure of what that journey's going to look like. And it's very difficult. So I think journaling is really helpful in acknowledging the fact that there are all of these losses that are going to occur, but there's also going to be little gifts that we're going to be given along the way. So, as an example, my mother was a very difficult woman she was very condescending. She was mean, if I'm going to be truthful about it. And yet I kept trying to care for her. And it was exhausting because there was nothing really coming back to me other than little insights along the way when my big reward was about, I don't know, 4 months before she died. I had taken her down to the beach and she had this big moment of clarity where she thanked me for everything that I had been doing for her. My mom never thanked me in a day in her life and told me that I was doing a good job. And I'm looking at her like, where's my mom? And she goes, I know your sisters aren't helping you and you're doing this by yourself. And it was like this incredible moment of clarity. And it was a real gift that I got. Most of what I got was afterwards, going back and reading my journals that I kept along the way to help me to to stay grounded. The losses are so many, and I think understanding what those losses are going to be can help us prepare. I mean, just acknowledging that there's going to come a time when maybe she's um, can no longer go out anymore, that we can't take them where we want to go. We have to change how we celebrate the holidays because too many family is too much for them. But again, living in the present moment, not how it used to be, on not how it's going to be, but really how it is right now. How is it right now when you're a caregiver, you're exhausted, but you can look into the eyes of your loved one and be present with that? be present in this moment, because this moment is all that we have. It's when we try to control what's going to happen in the future, and we berate ourselves with things that have happened in the past and all the losses, and we're fixated on all of those. That's what makes it difficult to be in the present moment, because we're not. We're in the future, or fear of the future, the unknown, the uncertainty, and then just the whole anxiety of the journey that we've been through, and how negative it is and how difficult it is. And there's no time. We don't allow ourselves the time. And that's why I'm telling you, the breathing and walking out in nature and the meditating, guided meditations, coming back to yourself and grounding in the energy of yourself allows you to be present for those you're caregiving. And it's not such a gigantic task in the moment. I know this sounds really difficult, but just grounding yourself in who you are and what's going on, and forget about what's going on out there in the world, because we cannot control that. We can write our senators, we can do all of that, we can do what we do, then let it go. Let it go. Spend that time. This is where self-care is so important, because it allows us, we take care of ourselves, we then have the energy and the compassion and all the tools that we need to stay present in the current situation. And we can witness the small miracles along with the small losses.
Great answer. So I'm going to switch topics slightly.
Okay.
What role can healthcare providers play in proactively assessing and addressing caregiver mental health, not just the condition of the patient?
Right. Oh my God. By taking a few moments and ask the caregiver, how are you doing? This is difficult. Acknowledging the difficulty of this on the caregiver. We had an incident a while back where a physician was examining a patient, and then did their thing, what they were supposed to do, and then walked out of the room. Didn't acknowledge whatsoever the spouse that was sitting there in the chair. And he was so angry. And when she died, and he found our support group, he was so angry because nobody heard him out and nobody validated. My motto here at the Bereavement Center is simple: all people need to be seen, heard, and validated. That's what we need. That's what caregivers need. We need to see them. We need to validate how difficult this journey is. And we need to take a few minutes to hear them. Just hear them and support them, validate them. Yes, this is hard. Yes, this has to be exhausting. What are you doing? We need to see them. And I've given some talks over at the hospital just on this topic, Lynn, that seen, heard, validated. You can do those three things to anybody in any situation. You can de-escalate angry people in the ER by seeing them, hearing them, and validating that, yes, when you say, oh, yeah, you have a right to be angry, It stops them in their tracks. Like, well, yeah, I do. Yeah, yeah, that was a long wait. And, you seen, heard, validated. And it's so simple to address the caregiver where they can feel safe now going, I'm having a really difficult time with this. And seeing their own doctor and going, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. I don't know what to do here. When my mom had, when she would call me 50 times a day when I was at work. Actually, one of the other counselors said, she goes, I think it's a record. She called 62 times. I said, yeah, I know. And I was in my doctor's office and my phone rang and I was literally exit seeking. I was just so, oh my God, my anxiety was so high. And my doctor said, okay, you're safe. First, she calmed me down. She got me safe. She said, first thing we're going to do is change your ringtone. I went, oh, wow. Why didn't I think of that? So we literally changed my ringtone. My mom still called, but every couple of days I changed her ringtone and it was like amazing. My body didn't respond to it. I wasn't in fight or flight. I'll tell you that. I was in flight listening because it was just so much. And I could not turn my phone off in case something happened because she was still living alone in her home. And so um, I think the thing that healthcare can do the best for the caregivers is to see them, hear them, and validate what they're going through, and then help them with some of the simpler decisions on what needs to be done and connect them with some resources that can help them. We refer people to Hope Dementia all the time.
And we appreciate that.
I mean, this is how you help the caregiver.
Well, I just wrote down see them, hear them, validate them, because that probably is the best thing I've heard in I don't know how long. So I have just one question left,
Okay.
and that is what are the most important signs of caregiver burnout that we should look for in ourselves beyond just feeling tired? And when is it time to seek professional help?
So when you find yourself acting out in a way that you would normally not act out in, and you're constantly going, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. That's telling me that you're burned out. That's telling me that you've reached the end of your capacity right now. And these are signs, uncontrollable crying, just bursting out crying for no real apparent reason, or an inopportune time. You're not watching a movie or anything. You're just sitting there and you just start crying. When you start isolating yourself from family and friends, that's a sign because we're retreating back into ourselves. That is real survival mode when we start isolating ourselves and withdrawing. So that's a big sign. You may not be able to go to lunch with your friends as often as you want, but if you can have someone that can be at the home where you can get out a little bit. But when you're saying no, 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 can't, I can't, I can't, I can't, that's a sign. It's like, stop. You're withdrawing from friends and family. So that's a big one. Uncontrollable about a crying or carrying on in a manner That is not your norm. Snapping at people, yelling at people, being snarky, not eating when you've lost all your appetite is because you're full. Your emotions, you're full. You don't want to eat anymore. So I would say withdrawal, uncontrollable bouts of crying or anger, living with a lot of regret, saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And that's gonna wear you out. That's a sign that you need to be talking with somebody. You need to be reaching out for help. And you know what? To go back just a little bit, Lynn, that's another thing that I think our healthcare can do is to let people know that it's okay not to be okay. We think that we have to hold on and do everything ourselves, and it's a weakness when we're not okay. And we need to get over that. Our society needs to stop and go, you're not okay? Tell me more about it. How can I help? How can I help? Is it okay that you're not okay? Because it's when we believe that we can't share who we are and what's going on is when it builds. Did I
Well,
answer?
you did. This was awesome. I appreciate you so much.